Hey everyone, it's Rod from Untethered Consciousness. I'm in Sydney. Today is the 14th of November. It's a Friday. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And with me, we've got returning guest, Tony Rathman. Thanks for coming back, Tony.
Pleasure to be here, Rod. Looking forward to hopefully getting some good questions on what Staticom is.
All right, cool. So we've already got a few people logged in. Thank you, Bernadette, for showing up. I'm pretty sure that Bernadette shows up every time I do a live stream. And so I really appreciate your support. Nancy, I haven't seen you before that I can remember. So thank you for tuning in. Now, if you are tuning in for the first, well, even if it's not for the first time, I'll just throw this up in the banner. Just let us know where in the world you are from. I'm always intrigued to find out where people are coming from. Very few people tune in from Australia, of course, but a lot of people come from the US, but all parts of the world. So let us know. Now, as far as housekeeping goes, some of you won't know who Tony is, so I'll get him to give a quick brief introduction of what he does and what we'll be talking about. And it doesn't all questions are good questions. So if you have a question, just put a Q in front of it in the comments, and I'll get to that. Roger from AZ Ghost Tours, thank you for tuning in from Arizona. I love that place. That's where all the esoteric people live. All the people interested in esoteric things. Nancy from Ontario, Canada. Thank you, Nancy, for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Nice to see a few people logged in today. And how about this? That I was just saying to Tony before we went on the air that we're almost up to 20,000 subscribers on the channel. Now, I've been running this for, I think I started like 2.5 years ago. So, you know, subscribers aren't that big of a deal, but it's really been gratifying to see the channel grow over time, and I appreciate everyone's support. Bernadette's from Canada. That's right, I remember now. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Anyway, so how about you just we'll just give us a bit of a brief intro as to how come you came on the channel in the first place, Tony, and what Staticom is, and then we'll see if anyone's got any questions, and we've got a few videos to show people as well, I think, haven't we?
Sounds great. Well, you know, we were discussing on the show about Staticom, Staticom 3.0, which is our latest version of it. And it is a method that allows us to communicate with whom we believe to be spirit or consciousness. And we believe that consciousness is responding through a system of stochastic resonance where we use white noise to elevate their voice into our human hearing range. And this differs from a spirit box or other known ITC devices because we do not use radio wave, not AM, not FM. We do not use word banks like apps do. We do not use voice-generated AI. There is nothing in here that should produce speech, but yet we can ask a question in our normal tone of voice and get a response with timing, relevance, and intelligence. And of course, the years of work on this went through various versions of Staticom, and we were always trying to increase the clarity of the speech we were getting, and to make sure that none of the factors that both scientists, skeptics, or academia would throw at us saying, well, you're not really hearing speech, your mind is pattern recognizing warbles and artifacts of sound, and you think you're hearing something. So we knew the speech had to be clear. The other thing was to get away from the radio, because skeptics will say, you know, you're just picking up a stray radio. The device you're using to get this speech is a radio. How do you determine reception from deception? And how do you determine the difference? Great points. So we got rid of the radio, replaced it with a white noise generator, and a broadband white noise contains no vocal data whatsoever. No sentences, no words, no syllables, nothing. It is a combination of frequencies all played at a spectral frequency of 1, meaning an equal level, from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, which is basically the range that humans can hear. They lose it at about 16,000 hertz, and it goes into like dog whistle frequencies that the human can't hear. But again, there should be no vocal data there at all. Yet we ask questions and we get responses with timing and relevance.
All right. So thank you, Sherry, for tuning in. Hello to you as well. So I've Bernadette's got a question there, so I'll bring up in a second. Would it be, I think maybe if we could demonstrate to people one of the video recordings that you've done, do you want to throw out one of those? And
absolutely.
Give people a bit more of an idea.
Can you say?
Yeah, let's give a little representation of what it is we're talking about. Let me share the screen here. And let's see, share screen. Entire screen. There we go. Share that.
All right, I'll throw that up on the stage.
Let me just make sure I shared audio. I think I skipped through that. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I'm going to start that over. I apologize. Okay, share screen. Okay. Also share audio. Yeah, let's make sure that is on. Okay, here it comes. And then this will be a really good example of what we're talking about. Now, this is a version that we had worked through. I asked them if they knew my name. I asked them to say Tony, actually, and they said my legal name. And when I realized that they answered me with my legal name, I said, wait a minute, well, let me play it instead of explaining it all. Here it comes.
Can you say Tony? Did you just say Rathman? Yep. So you know who I am. Can I know who you are? Yes, sir. Thank you. Who am I speaking to?
So
Did you say Tony?
Oh, sorry, it's playing again.
I'll just remove it.
Yeah. So that's not something my wife and I built spirit boxes for 12 years, and we could get the speech clearer on every new box we built. But what we couldn't do was lengthen the speech. And we realized that when it scans through a radio, the second it hits a station, they lose their ability to communicate. They are using purely the white noise, not radio stations. So between the sound of the white noise, the bits and fragments of different audio coming through as you scan through the stations, on top of the stations themselves, makes it practically impossible to determine what was being said. So we removed the radio, we removed the stations, we use white noise, but we cut it out at the end because it's at a spectral frequency of 1, leaving only the voice. And never, ever in spirit box use have I had 2 people respond to my question, who am I speaking to, with first and last name.
All right. So it almost sounds like magic, doesn't it? So there's a question here from Bernadette. How do you know who you are connecting to?
Fantastic question, Bernadette. The answer to that is strictly and honestly, we don't. We are using vocal sound only, so we can't see who it is. There's no caller ID for us to identify who we're speaking to. So the fact of the matter is we don't. We can ask questions to try to determine, is this a human spirit? When did you live? Who was president when you died? Things like that to get more information. And we have been able to get stuff we could actually research. And the information we were given did in fact match. But the bottom line is, and that's an excellent question, is we don't know. And so we always have to stay, somewhat leery of what comes through. We have to know that something could always be off, or we could be possibly lied to. But we did a test one time where we randomly chose internet questions based on past history, and we asked them. The answers we got were 97% correct, which was phenomenal to be able to have that happen. So hopefully most of the time they're giving us correct information and telling us the truth. And so far our research has shown that that has been occurring. So, but who we're speaking to, don't know. Most of the time they will respond and say, you know, we're spirit or we're consciousness, but could it be extraterrestrial? It's possible. Anybody who's experienced UFO phenomena says, well, they were speaking to me, but their mouth wasn't moving, which means they had some ability to transmit that information through other means. And if they can do that from consciousness to consciousness, they certainly could do what we've built with Staticom and communicate the same way. And if they're speaking in a language that I understand, that I can recognize as English or one of the other 3 languages my wife speaks, and we've gotten lots of different languages. But if I can understand it, they're speaking English, and they have enough knowledge of our world and our surrounding, I would have no way of telling that they're not a human spirit or they're of some other origin.
Oh, all right. So Roger's got a good one here. He's like works in the same kind of area by his handle that AZ goes to. So when and how did you decide to make the transition from spirit boxes to strictly a white noise generator?
Great question. When we couldn't lengthen the communication, that was the first step that said something's wrong. And then when we realized that they weren't using fragments of audio from the radio, the original theory behind a spirit box was that the spirit would take those fragments of audio and rearrange them and manipulate them into their own sentences. Well, we found that not to be the case. And the problem is that, you know, if you're scanning at 250 or 200 or 100 frame rates per millisecond, you're hitting radio station after radio station, and we were getting 1 or 2 word answers, not sentences. So that was the first step that said to us, the radio's got to go, also because of the skepticism behind using a radio. But we realized that through pure white noise, they're never cut off or stopped from communicating, and they can say sentences, paragraphs, or however long they want to talk. But excellent question.
So I've got a good one here from Nika. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that's pronounced correctly, Nika. How do you personally interpret the data, scientifically, spiritually, or both? This is a question that we sort of covered a little bit in our interview, but yeah, go ahead.
Excellent question. It is both. We start scientifically, but then you got to think about the fact that science only knows so much. And there's certain boundaries they will not cross. Consciousness is one of them they can't cross because they don't understand it. They can't study it. It can't be brought into a lab and pulled apart. And it's really difficult for consciousness, or the brain, as science would say, to understand itself. So we use science for what we know. What we know science can interpret and basically say, this is how this is operating, until we can't anymore. And then we have to turn to more of a spiritual side and say, okay, what is religion taught? Is that right? Does that fit? Does it not fit? What information have we gotten from the research to sometimes come up with a blend that doesn't necessarily fight science, but doesn't fight religion either, and comes to a straight line path to the information we're getting and the results we're receiving without weaving all over the board, trying to make exceptions for this, that, or the other. So it is definitely a combination of both.
So is it usually you that's like hearing what's going on, or and do you kind of, is it really just what you're hearing, or I'm just interested in your interpretation of how things are. There's something else there. I know that's a pretty tough question to answer, that one, but do you think it's all just what you hear, but there's more in there as well?
Yes, there is absolutely more in there. And then you can go down the path of, are certain messages strictly for certain people, and that's why they hear them. But then we've also taken a look at scientifically being able to identify. There's a thing called a voice print, where it doesn't matter if you say a sentence, Rod, or I say it, or my wife says it with different focal tone, different accents. The voice prints will literally show a graphical representation of what that sentence sounds like and is mapped out like in a vocal spectrum. So you can take two different people's voices and lay the same sentences up against each other and see that there's enough similarity that you're hearing what you thought you heard. And then the other steps that we've been going down, and we're getting closer, we're not there 100% yet, but is to take, and this is the only time we'd use AI, and it's after a session or a recording, but to let AI try and determine what's being said. And when AI can match what it's hearing against what's coming through Staticom, that's additional proof that what we're hearing is what AI is interpreting and is additional proof to what's being said.
All right, well, let's have this question from Bernadette. So have you had some not so pleasant experiences? This like an antenna attracting all and any spirits. I have experienced some really dark stuff.
There's only one that I can remember, at least from the ITC research days. I can think of a couple back in my paranormal investigation days, including one house in Las Vegas we were doing, and just the nastiest stuff came through the device we were using, as well as objects floating through the air. But we had that house, actually had to have it exorcised. But the only time I can recall where it felt like something maybe more on the dark side was we were in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And we were there for a Paracon, so we were giving a speech on the method, and then that night, a friend of mine who actually runs a very well-known haunted location here in the U.S. came up to me and said, "Do you have this here?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I got some strange stuff going on at the house. Can I ask some questions?" So we were doing that with a relatively large group of people that all wanted to hear it, but something very strange and a little nasty just came screaming through to the device, swearing the most uncomfortable messages. And I mean, the whole atmosphere of the room changed. Eventually, we just shut it off. We all walked outside for a while, cooled down, and then later came back in, started it back up again. But that would be my experience that I would consider to be a little more on the dark side. Now, am I going to say it's demonic? No. But it was definitely more on the dark side.
All right. Well, here's one from Samantha. Thanks for tuning in, Samantha. So how do spirits without a body create vocal sounds?
Again, these are wonderful questions. Just fantastic. So the first question is, when that question gets asked, well, how does a spirit without a body create vocal sounds? They don't have vocal cords. How does that happen? Well, it's because we're thinking of it in the same way materialistic science evaluates everything that they look into. It's all based on the 3D world and 3D materialistic physics. But you do not need vocal cords to produce speech. Now, I'm aging myself here, but anybody who remembers Jimi Hendrix playing his guitar, he could literally play the strings where it came out sounding like vocals, like words. So all you need is energy, frequency, and vibration to manipulate and make sound in any format you want. And that, and people say, yeah, but there's no vocal cords. Well, my question then is, does your radio have vocal cords? No, it doesn't. But what are you hearing? Perfectly aligned, clear speech. How is that occurring? Energy, frequency, and vibration. Those energy, frequency, and vibration vibrate that paper shell of the magnetic speaker, and out comes sound. Excellent question, though.
All right, Mercedes, thank you for tuning in. Another Arizonian there. So a question here from Nancy. Thanks, Nancy. What was the most profound result you received?
Wow. That's tough to place a pin into because there are so many. When I can get informations like the one I played on the show, when I wanted to know how they hear me speak, and they literally replied, energy of the mind. That's the thing. That was overwhelming to us. That changed our entire direction. That changed our entire research process. But then you've got things like when I had a 7-minute conversation with my grandfather who passed away when I was like 12. Was that absolutely jaw-dropping amazing? And then when I recorded it without saying a word, sent it to my mother, and she called me within 2 minutes and said, "That's your grandfather. Where did you get this?" Things like that, absolutely jaw-dropping. But there's so many of them. When we do live presentations, when somebody in the audience can recognize a voice from its vocal characteristics to a past loved one, and then get a piece of information that they've been wondering or worried about, and have them just be like, "Oh my gosh, that was them. I know that voice. That's the way they talk." All of those add up. And, it's always different which each group we do or each demonstration we do, but there's never one that doesn't have some huge impact to it that we just go, "Wow, this is crazy."
So how did you decide to try to initiate the communication with your grandfather who passed on, or how did that one come about?
Yes, it was absolutely by choice. It took a lot longer than just getting random responses. I had to ask over and over. I had to ask if they could find him. I had to ask them to bring him forward to communicate. And after a while, and this took night after night after night, but then he did. And when I said who I was, and he said, "Howdy, Tony," which, that was howdy's a pretty dated expression, but, and then checking with my mother, she's like, "No, he said that all the time."
Oh, awesome. Mercedes, I saw your question, but it's pretty much the same as the last one. So we'll skip over that one. Bernadette, yeah, spirits are more alive than we are. That's true. I just dropped that out. There's a book I started reading, which I just want to show the title here because it's kind of related to this. It's the one, where are we here? Yeah, this one here, the Spirits book. So I only just found out about it because Alan Chapman, who has the YouTube channel, which is, I forget the name of it now. He's been around for a really long time. And a lot of you probably know Alan Chapman. So he took the original book that was published by Alan Kardec, and he's going to be participated in republishing it. And it's like a spiritual classic that I'd never heard of, and he's moderated it and represented it. But this is like from the really early 1800s. And what I didn't realize was that spirit communication was really a popular thing back in that time, back in that sort of mid 1800s. And it was very commonly accepted as a thing, right? It started with table turning, and that tables would turn to indicate some sort of communication that people at first, when they heard about that, thought, "Oh, that's just rubbish. This is people doing it." But then as more and more people became exposed to it, they go, "Well, what is going on here? How is this table actually moving?" And then that sort of progressed into other things like Ouija boards and other stuff. But I find it fascinating that there's these teachings that have been coming through from way back then. And then what Alan Kardec sort of moved on to, he would use mediums. So he never actually got the communication himself, but the mediums were this sort of intermediary that would bring these messages forward. And for anyone who's got an interest in that, this book has only just been released. I don't have any affiliation with Alan Chapman. He wouldn't even know who I was, but I think it's a really interesting read. So I just wanted to mention that one.
No, that's awesome. And there's always some truth in any stories that come from way back and move forward, there's always a little bit of reality in them that's true. I mean, even the fact that we're using white noise. I mean, back in the 80s, Michael Keaton did a movie called White Noise, and nobody connected the dots, although white noise has been used, probably since the 50s in trying to elevate EVP and ITC work. So it's been known, but it's just so funny to have something thrown right in the face of everybody. And then we turn around and, white noise is our basis for all of this communication.
Yeah. All right. We got a question here from Roger from As It Goes to Us. So at its point now, could this be presented to scientists as proof of the paranormal, do you think?
Wow. Just excellent question again. It can be. In fact, Staticom is repeatable, which makes it studyable. Science will say that they can't study the paranormal because it can't be brought into a lab. It can't be repeated on desire to be studied. Staticom can be. It can be repeated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So could they literally take Staticom and continually test it? Yes, it could. That's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is breaking the scientific materialistic view. Scientists literally believe that consciousness is created in the brain. When the brain dies, the body dies. There is no more consciousness. We don't believe that at all, or no one would be answering my questions unless they were in range of my voice and had a microphone into the system that they could answer, which none of that exists. So yes, it can be. And hopefully at some point, some of the organizations we've reached out to will take that leap forward to come and check it out, because it absolutely can be.
All right. And for those, I just want to make another sort of related thing here. Oh, I wish I could do this a lot faster than what I do at the moment. Oh, I've got to stop that one. No, I don't. Hold on, people. All right, yeah, I got to stop that one. Now I can present again. I'm a bit rusty with presenting screens. So now I'm calling this out because I don't know. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Kai Dickens. Now, I actually interviewed Kai Dickens a few weeks ago, and she's the creator of the telepathy tapes.
Ah, yes.
And it's just an amazing story. But I think this is where a lot of research, well, thankfully, a lot of scientific research, and I don't know if the film that because Kai's a filmmaker, and I don't know if the film about the telepathy tapes is out yet. I think it's getting pretty close, but certainly, if you've never heard the Telepathy Tapes podcast, you should definitely go and check it out. It's amazing stuff. At one point, it was the most popular podcast on Spotify by none, even above the Joe Rogan podcast. And essentially, it's about mostly non-speaking autistic children, and some are adults, and how they can actually telepathy. Parents started to notice that their children were reading their minds, and the carers, and they there's a scientist became involved with studying what was going on, and they would use question and answers, and they would be getting the answers 100% right. So somebody would show something or say, okay, what is this thing I'm writing down? They'd be in another room, and the non-autistic person would be able to type out what the answer was exactly.
Sure.
So I think that the scientific community is starting to come around a little bit because of this, what is going on, and the attention that's being paid to it, that there's more, how do you explain telepathy? You can't do that with the existing paradigms that exist in science, and yet it's still happening, right? And it's, right. You watch some of the experiments that they've done are really, you can't look at them and go, well, that's actually somebody messing with us, or that's somebody playing around. It's actually that you just have to go, well, there's something obviously going on that can't be explained, and we don't.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And even the materialistic view has run into its own complications. Of course, the the hard problem of consciousness has always been one of their biggest concerns. But if you look where materialistic science has moved, it's then, moved to quantum physics, and then quantum entanglement. And now what they're calling quantum consciousness, or the OR theory. Consciousness is becoming integrated now into much of what we believe life to be at its basic form. Even like molecules and atoms, science is now saying, wait, quantum physics is saying that it only presents themselves on being observed, meaning that they're not there before a scientist observes them under a microscope. It's the observation or the consciousness impact that shows them as atoms and molecules, but that's not their natural state. It's the state of observation through consciousness that makes them appear that way at that stage and point.
All right. Well, here's a question from Nancy. How was Staticom received when you presented in Halifax? What's Halifax? Is that a place?
Yeah, we were in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, just a few weeks ago. Did a live presentation for the Canadian audience, and thank you for asking that question, Nancy. It went very well. They were blown away. We had one woman come up, and her father had passed away, and this was information only her and he knew. And she literally came up, handed her the mic, and she said, "Dad, what did you call me as a child?" She wanted him to say her nickname. I'm not going to say what that was, but he said it twice, loud and clear, and she just was absolutely blown away by it, because she said nobody on the planet would have known that.
Yeah, I have a lot of mediums on the channel, and that's the kind of reaction that those who are true mediums generate as well. There's like, how could you possibly know that? No one could know that. And that's where skeptics become believers pretty quickly.
Correct. Yeah. And, it takes that hard proof to be able to push away and dive deeper into what's actually occurring. In fact, we had to go through so many steps, including we got in communication with a double PhD university professor that was had his PhDs in both computer science and electrical engineering. And we wanted him to look at our system. And he said, well, I don't deal with paranormal. I said, well, just from an electronic standpoint. So he said, okay. He said, I'm not touching voices or anything. I said, okay, I understand. So he reviewed just the electronics. And then he came back with a couple suggestions. He said, I don't have a problem with anything. There's nothing here producing voice. But he said the only problem is in the white noise generator. It can pick up electromagnetic interference. And he said it's in a plastic case. So he said, encase this in steel, ground the circuit to the steel casing, then ground that to a pole, shove 2.5 feet in the ground. And he said, if you still get voices after that, I'll be impressed. Well, guess what? We did all of that. Voices didn't change one bit. But those are all the steps to make sure that what we're presenting is as legitimate and as verified as it can be.
All right. So Roger's back again with another question. So could you use it with, say, a medium or psychic as like a fact checker?
Yeah. In fact, great question again. We've done instances with mediums. And when the medium is pulling information, and we believe that Staticom is getting the information the same way a medium does. It is literally consciousness to consciousness in the medium form, meaning universal consciousness. You ask a question, they're not getting it from my vocals, they're getting it from my mind, and they're responding back. Through Staticom, it interprets that either sound wave or energy wave into sound that the human ear can hear. In the method of a medium, they're literally sending that message from consciousness to consciousness, and the medium is picking up on thoughts, feelings, emotions through that sent conscious energy. So in connection with mediums, we've had mediums say something and then had Staticom finish it. Like they said, somebody died here. They passed away suddenly, and Staticom will say something like heart attack. And then the medium said something like, well, I'm getting a J name and then Staticom said John. I'm not going to say the last name, but first and last name. So the connection between the two can be amazing. And we want to do additional research along that lines to further proceed in its development.
All right. So, Roger's clearly a fan. It would be interesting to see Staticom in person. Maybe I'll be able to do that one day. He's got one. Oh, who remembers the movie Flatliners? My goodness, that's what was his name? Is it Kiefer Sutherland's? Was it Kiefer Sutherland that was on
Kiefer Sutherland?
Yeah. That's an old
great
one.
movie.
He says, I wonder, this may be a little dark. If, say, like the movie Flatliners, you could use Staticom while they did. Yeah, that is a little dark, mate.
Well, there was some information that came forward that, if Staticom could be used, similar to what you were saying, Rod, about the telepathy ability, but somebody in a coma, could we get messages from somebody in a coma through Staticom? I think it's possible. Absolutely, I do.
Yeah. All right. So Nika would like to see some more clips. Actually, I'll just skip over Roger's one. Yeah, I'm aging myself too. Don't worry. Yeah. So do you have any other clips?
Sure.
Do you have a more compelling one?
Yeah, let's do this one. This was a round of questions. We were seeing the thing when we hit Staticom 3.0 is that we could ask question after question and get response after response. We couldn't do that with earlier versions. It would disappear. So let me bring this one up. And here is that clip.
I can hear you when you whisper, you know that, right? Guys, if you're not familiar with this device is called Staticom. If you heard me say Staticom.
Now, please say Staticom for me, please.
All right, Spirits, if you don't want to say Staticom, let's play another game. What am I holding in my hand? Glasses, thank you. Thank you very much. How about pineapple? Can you say pineapple? Oh, perfect, thank you. How come you can't say Staticom like that?
It's one word.
It's one word, Staticom. Have you not been able to talk to humans before? If you can hear me, Spirits, say elephant.
Do you know Tony?
It's me. If we use this device to help cold cases, will you answer the question? Yeah, sure. You bet. Thank you.
That will help.
That'll help a lot.
So again, two-way communication, and a couple of things that really stand out in that clip is that my wife speaks multiple languages, Japanese, Tagalog, and English. They answered her in Tagalog when she was asking them to speak. Kailapan, my wife's going to kill me. I don't remember exactly what that means, but that was what they said. When was that? I think it means, but clearly Tagalog speech they were using.
Yeah, Roger was saying they need to play the is it Bachi one? Do you know which one he's talking about?
I do. I do. All right, I'll bring that one up.
Marcello.
All right, here's the Bocce one. Now, this was way back. This was direct radio voice. So this one still had the radio. But my wife is sitting with me, and she wanted to see if we could get a hold of Marcello Bocce, who used direct radio voice for about 35 years. So here's that clip.
Marcello, can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcello, you started this method. It's working. Can you please try to communicate with us?
Now that's just crazy, because even though Marcello Bocce was an Italian gentleman, and he's speaking English, which wouldn't have been his native language, he may have known English. But when you listen to that, you can hear an Italian dialect in the way he said, "I'd say glad to meet you," which we just find absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I found it interesting also with the previous clip that you played that the responses almost came before you'd finish asking the question. Do you find that happens often?
Yeah, because they don't need me vocalizing the sentence, and we do it just so that the recorder picks it up and knows what I asked. But they have that information instantly, and they don't need to take that time for me to actually vocalize it. And there are times, even with Staticom, that answer will come in before I even finish asking.
Yeah. There was also, when I was speaking with Kai Dickens from the telepathy tapes, that was also something that often came up when they're like doing the experiments with the kids, is that the parent or the carer or whoever was normally doing the communication would think about what they're going to show to the hidden camera, but the moment that they thought about what they were going to do, the other side, the child would spell out what it was that they were about to show there. It was, and that's sort of when it made me think, yeah, it's not reliant on the things being made real in the real world. As soon as the thought happens, it's like transmitted straight away.
Right. And the saying is, thoughts become reality, and that becomes more true under this situation than any other. Thoughts do become reality, can affect reality, and everything in between.
Yeah. All right. So amazing how many people have joined. It must be some of your crowd here, Tony, as well. It's really good to see. I can't see any more questions. So if you do have any more questions, just chuck a Q in front of the comment and I'll pick it up. Hopefully I didn't miss any. So what are you working on at the moment then, Tony, when you're not, demonstrating the device?
Sure. Obviously, we're on Staticom 3.0 right now. Do we believe that's the end of it? No, not even close. So I just partnered with one of the top ITC, or instrumental transcommunication researchers in Brazil, as well as a fantastic electrical engineer. So he can build things that I can't. So we partnered together. We plan to take this as far as we can take it. And him and I were just reviewing some things today, actually. Well, a couple days ago, I guess, but again today, where we're looking at the possibility of not only continuing to improve the vocals, but to bring in imagery as well. Now, not imagery like we're seeing between you and I in this video, but people like Sonia Rinaldi and so many others, I don't even want to name them all, have the ability to use different vapors and to capture spiritual imagery. While Samuel had been working on something similar and is getting results, and we're thinking, well, maybe if we combine the two, we can get a snapshot image of who we're speaking to for further development of this system.
Wow. All right. Well, we've got a question here from Nancy. Probably a dumb question. I don't think any questions.
No.
Are nice. Have you ever tried to contact a famous person from history like Churchill?
Well, the only reason we stay away from that now, it depends on who you consider to be classified as famous. Nikola Tesla, I would consider to be famous, and we did get a message from him. Matter of fact, it was passed over to me from a friend today and is on our Patreon page. But it is talking about Tesla and his involvement in this, which we thought was absolutely incredible. The reason we don't go after what I would consider to be famous people is that there is such negativity in the ITC world about people who spoke to Michael Jackson or, any famous person, and most of the time they're faked. And we just want no association with that, or even any representation that would facilitate what we do and what they do, and to be put on the same page. Great question.
Yeah, I agree with Mercedes. It's like being able to talk to your family, just like not having to be a medium. That will be a very interesting day when that comes.
Absolutely, it is. And you don't have a third-party interpreter either, meaning that if you're sitting down with a medium, they're going to get what information they're receiving, whether it be feelings or thoughts or impressions, and then they have to reinterpret that back to you. Whereas Staticom, you hear it directly, and everyone else in the room hears it all at the same time, and hopefully the same thing.
So Nick has got a question, which is one that I asked in our interview. Is Staticom available in the market, and how can I get one?
Not yet. We've had that asked every time we either demonstrate it or show it. At some point, it will be. When that is at this point, I can't say. This was done as a research project, never as a money maker. It was done to find out what we could find out. We started out trying to capture a spirit and realized we were chasing more than just a lonely spirit wandering around. We were chasing consciousness, human consciousness, and probably the consciousness of every other living thing. And so that's the research part of what we were trying to get information on. And lots of people want to get a hold of it, and we completely understand that. It's just not available yet. It won't be until we get the research completed to the point, or whoever else decides to pick it up next. I don't know. But at some point, would it be nice to have this as a home appliance? I don't know of a better word for it, or method to be able to reach out? Yeah, absolutely. And so that people can also show that they can get the same results that we're getting. So yeah.
It's like science fiction, isn't it?
It is.
You speak about it like that, but there's so many things that we would have thought are impossible even 20 years ago that are just everyday
Right
today. It'd be interesting to see. So Mercedes, she's got a bunch of things here. So how many different languages have you picked up so far, and have you heard languages that you have not heard before, even ETs?
Another great question. Wow. I would say probably somewhere in the range of 12 to 14 different languages. The one I remember getting, I couldn't understand any of it. I didn't know what they were speaking. So I said to them, that doesn't sound like English. What language are you speaking? They came back and said Turkish. So luckily I was recording. I found a friend that had a friend that spoke Turkish, took it to them, and they translated it to me. And even some of the questions I was asking before I realized they weren't speaking English, they answered in Turkish. And then finally I said, I don't speak Turkish. Can you speak to me in English? And they did. But we've had Turkish, Japanese, Tagalog, English, Latin, a Native American language that we didn't understand. The gentleman who asked it in his Native American language, and they answered him in it. Italian, German, and probably some others, but those are the ones I remember off the top of my head.
So Mercedes, I've got, I'm just going to share my screen again. There's another, if you've got an interest in, oh, actually it relates to another question that, oh, it's a statement actually that anyway, regarding your dog, how the dog airline knows exactly when I'm thinking about it's time for his bath. Now, I didn't really understand the connection that people have with their pets, but the reason I'm showing this video, because it's one that you should watch. It was a live stream I did a while ago with Heather Mays, and she's a pet communicator. So she said in her own words, she wasn't really that keen on humans. So the idea of being a psychic for pets really suited her well. But we actually got people to send in the pictures of their pets, and people asked questions about this particular example. She had a feral cat called Wiley who she'd been trying to catch him, and she wanted to know what was going on, why he wouldn't come to her, etc. So it's a really interesting. I mean, Heather's interview was interesting, but we dove way more into the pets side of things in that particular live stream. So you should definitely check out the replay. It's a good one.
Yeah, and to Mercedes' question, I mean, if you believe, and we absolutely do, because we've had people ask to have their dog that passed bark, and the bark comes through absolutely clear as can be. But if you believe that any carbon-based body, whether that be human, dog, horse, also has consciousness, then there is no reason why consciousness can't again connect to consciousness, just as psychics do, and transmit messages that way. If spirits, we believe, are transmitting all of their communication to Staticom that way. And so could the dog realize, oh my gosh, it's bath time, and take off? Yeah, we believe that's very possible.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. So yeah, I've got a hard stop at pretty soon, actually. Is there anything that you? I think we've got all the questions. So thank you for everyone. That's really amazing. You guys participating. You got anything you want to leave people with before we wrap it up, Tony?
Yeah, the only thing I want to say, and first of all, to everyone who was in the audience that asked questions, some great questions. Thank you all so much. The only thing I want to add is, as amazing as this technology is, and the fact that we can get answers from what we believe to be the other side or another realm, or however you want to define it. Just always remember that the people that are here now on Earth with you and around you, tell them now. Tell them what they mean to you. Tell them that you love them, and tell them that you're ecstatic to have them as part of your life, because when that change happens, and it will eventually happen, it's a waiting game. You'll see them again eventually, but it is a waiting game. So tell them now.
That's good advice. All right. So I'm going to come to your question in a sec, Nika. Thank you. Yes, I agree, Nancy. You're great listening to you today, Tony. Now, Nika wants to know where we can find you. Now, I will say that I'll put links in the description of the video to Tony's channel and their website, etc., so you can get in touch with them that way. And you did mention you had a Patreon, so you may as well do a shout out for that as well.
Yeah, the Patreon site is www.patreon.com/Staticom. The other place to find us is our website, entityvoices.com, or Facebook, Tony Rathman. Those are the best places.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for coming back and having a chat. It was fun today. Thank you to everyone who participated today. I really appreciate it. And I guess for those of you who haven't, this is your first time back on Other Than the Consciousness, then I'll have another interview sometime next week, or maybe the week after. it's in progress at the moment. So stay tuned for that as well. And that's all for today. Thanks everyone.
Thank
Talk to you later.